Welcome back, and welcome from me at Shed Central. Nice to have everybody back again, and thank you very much for the questions that have come through. So today's subject is employee engagement, a subject which has proved very, very popular since we launched it at the beginning of this week. I think it's very current. I think it's very real. I think probably because at the moment, what we do have is we have companies where some people are off, some people are in, some people are working from home. And the challenge of managing that, I think, would generally be a little bit like herding fish, I think. So today I wanted to speak to somebody who understands employee engagement and to focus on three sort of specific areas which have come up from feedback that we have had. So number one is about what do we do, what can we do now? The second one is to do with what can we do midterm as we start to see that phased approach coming back in again. And the third one is around sort of the longer time and what that might look like in terms of, somebody termed it to me the other day as the new world of work. So to help me with this discussion, I have invited Richard Roberts from Enrich into the shed. So just a little bit about Richard. He is an employee engagement and culture specialist, formerly sort of the HR director and head of employee engagement at Virgin Mobile. And he presents UK and international conferences on topics of employee engagement and culture and employee branding. So today he's coming to you from a shed in Cheddar. So yeah, I think to help me with the discussion, I'm going to introduce you to Richard Roberts. Hi, Richard.
Hello, Karen. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. Thank you for joining us in my wee shed in Cheddar. Yours looks like the typical sort of bookcase behind you. I'm liking it. It's very nice.
I'm in Bristol Library today. They let me in especially.
And gave you your own drop down, your own background, so that you could.
Exactly. I have influences in high places.
Okay, so lots to talk about. We've had a lot of stuff come in, especially over the last sort of 3-4 days.
Yeah.
The message went out on Monday. So yeah, we've got quite a few questions to get on with. So let's start with where we are at the moment then. I think in terms of the feedback that we get and the ones we've had from clients that we're working with at the moment is we're all a little bit mind and body weary at the moment. It feels like people are generally sort of just running out of steam, which ironically is now at the time that companies are looking to start their re-engagement with people back into the workforce in whatever form that may take. So they're thinking about transitioning their people back in at a time when they are not particularly in the right place in mind and body, if you know what I mean. So talk to me about, is that a reflection of how things are with you in your world at the moment? What does employee engagement feel like where you are at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, very much so. I mean, it's tough. It's tough out there. It's more tougher for some organisations who've had to make redundancies and had to furlough people. Those companies that have gone to remote working, for some companies that's been easy because of the technology or the way they previously worked. For some, that's been a real shock. I think for the first couple of weeks of lockdown, people were actually in shock, and I certainly was, and trying to work through how we're going to cope with all this. I have seen in the last couple of weeks a bit more optimism and more positive thinking around, right, what are we going to do when we return to work? And I know the government are looking at all those kind of guidelines. So yes, I mean, the market, it is tough out there. And as you said, that the key challenges are, how do we engage? How do we keep in touch with our teams when, some of them might be working, but they're working remotely, or they're furloughed and technically they're not allowed to work. And again, that's a whole big challenge in terms of how do you keep those people connected with the business.
Yeah. So what would you suggest then? I mean, we're working in a very different climate. What could or should we be doing in terms of that sort of short-term part, so the bit about what we can do now? What are some sort of easy interventions that you think we can do right now in terms of those dispersed teams?
Yeah, and I think it's for me, it's quite simple. It's, keep in touch with people, keep connected. I know of lots of different companies who are doing lots of different things on that. Maybe it's through virtual team meetings. Um, I do some work for Pure Planet, who are an renewable energy supplier. The senior managers there, they have all individually checked in with everybody virtually. Took them 2 weeks to do. There's 100 people, but there's 3 of them who literally virtually called everybody just to check in, just to say hello. I know of companies have done things like lunch and learns, virtual coffee breaks, a lot of Q&As. I think the other important thing is to tell people what's expected of them, because there's a bit of confusion around, I'm working from home or I'm furloughed. What does that actually mean on a day-to-day basis? And I think people do get very stressed by all of that. And I think the other thing is around helping managers coach their people, because they have a really important part to play in all of this in terms of that one-to-one contact. And as we know, some managers are not great at people management. Might have underestimated that a little bit. So it's helping them really to have conversations with their people, which then leads me on to the second point around well-being. And this, I think, has become a very, very important part of what is happening, in terms of, it's a stressful situation. People are in lots of different circumstances. I know at Pure Planet, we got people with kids of school age, who have had to suddenly juggle working with homeschooling. I am convinced that my children will come in during this and do a BBC Forest correspondence. Maybe be able to hear them in the background going, I want to go and join in that session. So there's that whole stress of juggling that all. They might have partners who have been furloughed or made redundant if they're still working. And then, of course, the whole situation around the virus is stressful in itself. And being inside all day and just going out once for your Boris daily exercise, that must be having an enormous impact on people's mental health. So I think the role that companies can play on that is, first of all, is be flexible, is be sympathetic, is to show concern, is to adapt working hours to suit, if that's possible, and also just signpost resources. So there's an enormous amount of information out there. Just go on LinkedIn for 20 minutes. There are lots of seminars, there's lots of websites. I know there's a mental health awareness week coming up, which I think is starting on the 14th. So there'll be lots of information. And basically, it's about encouraging people to support each other. Certainly at Pure Planet, I know examples of people who they're more vulnerable than the others, maybe because of their health, and people have helped them by going out and doing the shopping. One of our guys has volunteered for St John's Ambulance. So there's all sorts of things as well in kind of community, which is which is kind of the positive side of all of this. So yes, I think there's lots that can be done, but in summary, it's really just keeping in touch, keep people connected, keep people involved, and also don't forget the fun stuff. Have a pub quiz, have a session where somebody entertains you all. One of our guys at Pure Planet did a magic show on, which is interesting for the card tricks. Pick a card, any card. Oh, that's the one. Somebody did a piano recital. All sorts of things you can do.
I think that's one of the things about engagement. I was talking to actually somebody that we both know from the industry, and she was saying that in some ways there has never been a better time to demonstrate employee engagement, because the way in which people are reacting and the resilience that they're showing in certain circumstances and the way they are coming together to help their colleagues. You know, she was saying, and it's quite right, that, you know, there's never been a better demonstration, to a certain extent, there's never been a better demonstration of employee engagement than right now.
Well, absolutely.
Yeah.
And it's also, I think, true to say that the way companies are dealing with the situation now with their teams will be very telling for the future. If, you know, I've heard stories of friends who say that their employers they just totally ignored them and done very little. Now that will be very telling when it all gets back to normal. Whereas other companies have gone the extra mile and have really put a lot of effort in. And again, that will pay big dividends for people.
Yeah. I think in some ways, though, in fairness, you know, when you talked about sort of the furlough bit earlier, you were saying about, you know, the communication and the clarity that individuals need right now has never been, you know, is really important. And I think, you know, from my experiences is, you know, not necessarily sort of my clients, but, you know, there is a lot of press and, you know, there's a lot of opinions at the moment that I think furlough was considered that if they were off, and therefore you couldn't contact them and you couldn't email them and you couldn't do this. And it's just such poor information at a point when people really need that clarity and communication, I think, isn't it? It's not.
Well, they're the ones I think you communicate most with. I mean, they're still your employees. There's a huge duty of care. You know, they're the ones sitting at home trying to think of things to do. The other issue, of course, that I've experienced with some of my clients is a bit of an us and them. So this is where maybe half the team have been furloughed and half haven't.
Yeah.
A lot of issues have come up as a result of that some people are at home not doing anything on 80%. Some people are working 100%. And there's lots of perceptions around that, you know, all the furlough people are sitting at home drinking martinis, you know, watching Netflix all day long, where we're hard at it and only being paid 20% more.
Yeah.
You know, that is an issue as it is, but also that'll be an issue when everything comes back together.
Yeah.
So that needs to be very carefully managed.
Yeah. So let's talk about that then, because that ties into that midterm section that we were talking about, you know, midterm. And I guess that's like 6 months. I think we're talking about sort of from a midterm perspective. Yeah. So pick up on that point then, you know, you are right. We are going to see, like I said, there's different pockets, isn't there? There's those that are working from home that have had little, you know, much less contact, those that have been off and those that have been in. So talk about that. What sort of advice do you give in terms of that?
Well, first of all, I think companies need to be working on a plan for the return, however that looks like. And indeed, that needs to be very carefully thought through, and it will hugely depend on, of course, the government guidelines. There's some external factors as well, like when the schools will go back. And it's just working through, right, how are we, you know, going to do a phased approach to this, to people getting back into the office? Of course, you know, what will that look like is a key factor. I know one company in Bath who have already said, actually, we're not going back to the office because we like it from home. I mean, it's only 20 people. It's not a big organisation. So they've already given notice on their lease on their office. So they've already made that decision. They're not going back. I know some people will be very keen to get back. You know, we are social animals. I think it's highly unlikely that, you know, it'll be everyone being back in the office or everybody working from home. There'll be kind of a middle ground, if you like. Some people will be very nervous about going back. If you've got a long commute, for example, that will have a big impact upon people's psychological safety in all of that. And then, of course, there is the factor of the office. How is that going to be set up? Distancing. You know, one of the things at Pure Planet we've talked about is the air conditioning, you know, because it is all that system. And does that have an impact? So lots of different things. But I think the key thing is to talk to your people, find out how they're feeling, get their thoughts and get their ideas, Because at the end of the day, they're the ones that are going to have to buy into whatever you come up with. And, you know, I think that this is now the time to start thinking about it, because this might happen in a month's time, this might happen in 3 or 4 months' time. And the big impact as well, as I mentioned before, that managers have. So it's, you know, if it's a larger organization, which makes it less effective to do the one-to-ones, you need to work for your managers to get that support, to coach people, to help people. And of course, the other thing to remember, of course, is that, you know, people coming back are going to be in, you know, they've been for a stressful time. They might still be going through a stressful time. They might have suffered a bereavement, for example. They might, you know, there's one guy at Pure Planet whose dad went into intensive care with the virus. Luckily, touch wood, he's fine. So that was a horrible situation. So yeah, so the well-being aspect again is really important, and then but just showing that concern, that empathy, because you know some people are going to be desperate to get back in the office. Yeah. Some people will be kind of. I mean, I'd love to go back to the office, but I'm a bit nervous because I've got, you know, 2 train journeys to do to get to the office. I've got young kids, so that's another impact upon the homeschooling stuff. So yeah, so it's really thinking through what are all the different factors, and just involve people in that as much as you can. Now, as I said, it will depend upon the scale of the organisation how you do that. You know, I had one company said, "Oh, shall we do an online survey?" And I, as you know, I have a particular view on online surveys. I went, no. I said, "Oh, I know. Here's a radical idea. Why don't you just talk to people?
Pick up the phone. That's
what do you think?
Get on a Teams call."
I don't know. It's a bit out there. I know.
It's interesting though, because I think that is a fallback. I mean, one of the questions we had was around, you know, the right intention. The right intention was around how do we get the feedback from our employees? How do we, you know, I was talking we were talking to Becky Wright from New Leaf about the wellbeing a couple of weeks ago, and she was saying about, you know, all of that stuff about the anxiety and, you know, even desk sharing and how far apart we should sit and all of those things, like you said, train journeys, you know, having spent that much time with their family and then having to go back. And, you know, so I think all of that well-being. So I think the intention is right when people will say we need to communicate and get feedback from our employees. But actually, it's got to be done in the right way. You know, you and I have the same opinion in terms of surveys, but yeah, right sort of right thought, slightly wrong tool, I think would be the thing. Like you said, radical idea would be, you know, we're all very relaxed in terms of these things now, in terms of Zooms and team and, you know, and everything else. So why would you not just get everybody on and start talking about it? And yeah, I think, like you said, the planning is key in terms of getting a plan together and not just going, okay, so from Monday the 15th, we'll lights back on, everybody back in again. You know, it's not going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen. So
it won't. And of course, it's very important, I think, and I think companies sometimes miss this, is to over communicate the message. What are the expectations? Because I think people don't realize that people stress about that kind of stuff. What we have this at Pure Planet around, there's lots of activity going on. We have a Slack system. There's lots of fun channels, lots of people join in, but you know, we've had some feedback that people are getting stressed about, are they expected to join in? Are they, you know, will they be judged if they don't join in? And that came as a bit of surprise to us because we have a very informal culture. And remember that people, you know, they need to know what, you know, you can do it in a very nice, informal way. What is the expectation? And I kind of, you know, our kind of message at Pure Planet about the return is, it's up to you. It's your preference, your choice, because everybody's in a different circumstances. So don't feel under pressure to come back to the office. Some people will, as we said, will want to, some people won't. Now, what it will look like in 12 months, 24 months, I'm not sure. I would like to think that the positive thing that has come out of all of this, that flexible working or remote working becomes normal. I'd like to think that people will come into the office because there's the social aspect, there's the human aspect, there's the face-to-face contact that people do need, I think, as human beings. But they probably won't come in as regularly as they used to. And that's got to be a good thing. That's got a good thing for your well. Certainly a good thing for the environment. I've been reading lots of information certainly on BBC about how carbon emissions have reduced, and I'm on the flight path where I live for Bristol Airport, and also the flights coming into Heathrow from America, and I haven't seen a flight go over for weeks.
Yeah.
And the sky is certainly a bit bluer.
So actually it's a bit bluer here as well. We're to the south of Cheddar. So going back to that sort of that longer term aspect about somebody asked us the question, and this is a very broad question. I think it sort of encapsulates quite a few of the ones that came through, but what do we think the future of employee engagement looks like for businesses longer term? Which I know is a huge question. What if I asked you, what would you say? What's your guess right now?
It's a great question. I think that there's a sense that you can only do employee engagement when you're in the office, which I don't think is true. I think it would the way what is employee engagement anyway? I think it's just the way a company deals with you, how you treats you, the interactions, what is the leadership style, the management style. The one thing that I've had to really adapt to from working from home every day is just it suddenly is virtual. Now I love being in the face to face. I love the vibe of the office. It's just adapting it to make sure that you are, first of all, including everybody, because that can be an issue when you work remotely, that people get forgotten or people don't take part in all the social fun stuff that we discussed. Naturally, people are introverted, some people are more extroverted, so it's accommodating that really wide audience and making sure that everything we're doing on this agenda is appealing to everybody. So I think for me, what will it look like in the future? I think it will be very similar to the principles and the ways that we do it now. It's just thinking through in more depth, perhaps, that the audience, if you like, where are they? What are they doing? How are they feeling? I also think well-being will play a much bigger role. Yeah. Which it hasn't necessarily, sadly, before. I think that will become more at the forefront. I think people's personal well-being will be more of a focus for companies, because they have seen the value of helping and supporting people on that front during this situation. I think I'd like to hope that if companies are getting it right for this period, that community spirit, for example, for want of a better word, will, as I said before, really pay dividends. I've certainly got to know people much more at Pure Planet, bizarrely, virtually, because we're sharing more, we're discussing things on more social bases. We do this thing called Question of the Day, where we ask people, what's their favourite country, tell us about your favourite holiday, your worst holiday, tell us about, your favourite band, your favourite film. And that's just a bit of fun at the end of the day that people contribute to. But just through that, I've got to know people a bit more, and some of the funny stories that people have been telling about their lives. People have been doing lunch and learns on various. We had a lunch and learn on my love of sharks by somebody, which was great. Lots of pictures of sharks. But again, it was all, so I'd like to think that is another positive thing that will come out.
I think we've also got a lot more. I've noticed it is that it seems like we've got an awful lot more time, and that point of us connecting better is because we've got more time now, rather than whether it's because we're not on a commute or whether it's because you know we're I don't know whether we're working longer, but there does, and you're right, there does seem to be more of and we're more personal now. But I think because we're in our homes while we're doing it, we should. You know, people can see who you are. I think there's that slight vulnerability, isn't there, that people you know, people can see. I mean, she's not here right now, but my dog has become quite famous. Mabel has become quite famous because she just randomly pops up like your children in the middle of a conversation. You know, it's not something I would normally talk about, but now people will say to me, "Where's Mabel?" Because she's constantly, you know, she'll pop up from nowhere. So I think there's a lot more vulnerability and a lot more personal connection that we've made, which that can't be a bad thing. You know, I'm even
I agree.
That's somebody from somebody that says that it's good.
I remember doing a virtual call about 2 years ago with a potential new client. And I remember I was mortified when my kids walked in and kind of, and actually they did say afterwards, that's one of the reasons I won the business. But I suppose the point there is, I mean, kids joining in, wives and partners, or whoever it is, bringing in coffees during meetings and saying hello and just sharing and going, you're right. You know, I know now, as I said before, much more about people and their lives, their families than I've ever done before, which, I know in some organisations that might be frowned upon. I know that might not be the way we do things, and that's not our culture, and it's all very structured and professional. But I mean, for me, and I've known you for many years, and Pure Planet and the clients I work with, that's very much, you know, it's not just about work. It's a much bigger piece, isn't it now? If people talk about work-life balance, but I don't think that exists. It's just all life. And work is one of the many components of that.
Life.
They all merge into one, don't they? And on that note, my son will walk in because he's outside the door.
There'll be a fly past in a minute.
I said, "Come in now. This is the point I'm making."
I don't think it's a bad thing. It's not, you know, we often talk about, you know, bringing your whole self to work, or that people don't bring their whole self to work, and we see something that's very different. And I think it always amazes me that, you know, we've seen politicians do it, we've seen, I don't know, singers do it, musicians do it, you know, all sorts of people, and we go, you know, you sit there and you go, oh, I didn't expect their house to look like that. And yet you just go, actually, I quite like that. I quite like that. I like the fact that they've, you know, they can share their dining room with someone. So,
I think as well for leadership, and you make a very good point about vulnerability, you know, seeing, you know, at Pure Planet, I remember in the first virtual team meeting, so we have 3, what we call the founders. So these are the 3 guys who set the business up 3 years ago, who run the company. They, in the virtual team meeting, for the first 5 minutes, they each talked about how difficult they had found it to move to remote working, and what struggles they were having. And we got a tremendous amount of feedback from that to say, wow, you know, that was the best bit of the team meeting, rather than the dull business stuff about how are we doing as a business and Project X and Project Y, how's that all going? It was that bit that people really responded to, because they were like, and they were in, you know, they were in their front rooms and in their studies or whatever, and it was a real glimpse into part of their world that we would never normally see. So, and that's the authentic nature, isn't it, of leadership? And then that you know, leads into things like having, you know, they're very honest, they're very open with their communication, but it completely married up with this, you know, this vulnerability, if you like, and this kind of, gosh, they're like us, you know, they're human beings.
Yeah. And but then
they're stressed, they're anxious, they're vulnerable.
And I've been amazed how many people have said that to me, that,
Yeah.
you know, things like, you know, that's not what I was expecting.
Yeah.
And, you know, it begs the question of what, you know, what were you expecting? And like you said, you know,
Yeah.
they're human, and they, you know,
Yeah.
you know, we talk about, so in terms of Rome, we've got something called the people canvas, which is about, you know, what do we, you know, what is the purpose of the business, and where's it going, and what do you want it to look like, and what do you want it to feel like? And we talk about, you know, the sort of the conscious leadership, you know, from that perspective, and that, which is that vulnerability perspective. And there is a you know, there's a resistance, I think, still there from, you know, where they're not, that is engagement, isn't it, where they're not, you know, the founders, leaders, whatever, managing directors haven't got that capacity. You talked about coaching the team leaders, but I think there's also something from a senior management perspective in there, which is, you know, coaching them to let them know that it's okay to be vulnerable, that to engage better, you know, is going to need them to be more vulnerable, is going to need them to sort of show, not hello, my name's Karen and here's my life on the table. You know, we're not asking that. What we're saying is you know, is just those things with them. You know, you don't have to hold, it's a lonely job at the top, and you don't have to hold all of that. You know, that's not what it's all about. You're not expected to sort of hold it all. You're not expected to share it all. But yeah, we've seen a massive increase in AMAs as well, the, you know, Ask Me Anything. And I think that's become much more a tool nowadays, especially, you know, while we're in this situation where the AMAs are, you know, people have generally just gone, usually it's, could you tell me about the state of the business? And it's gone from that type of question to, you know, ask me anything. What does it really feel like for you at the moment at the top? That's, you know, that's engagement, isn't it? It's not, you know, certainly not the sermon.
And that's a very different leadership model, certainly from when I started working many moons ago. Like, you know, the leader of the organisation, you know, it's very, you know, in some respects quite macho. You know, I did some work for an engineering company, and their leadership team was all blokes, and it was all very macho and very blokey, and you wouldn't, you know, they would never talk about their families. They would never talk about their, because they were good at everything. Of course they were, because they were the leaders. But now that the modern way of leadership now, it is that, isn't it? It's the kind of Richard Branson thing around, you know, I can't be good at everything. I'll recruit people who can do all the good stuff around me. And, you know, I'm a human. The key thing is to be honest and open and authentic, and that's what builds the trust and the confidence. So yeah. Excellent
point to end on.
Thank you.
That's okay. That in generally it's really good. I mean, I've been scribbling sort of notes while we've been talking, and I think sort of some of them are around. There you go.
There he is. Yeah, right on cue. Come and say hello, Sam. My charger is in my garden shed. Yeah. You might want to edit that bit out. Daddy, tell me about the top 3 tips for engagement. Oh, son.
So yeah, I think, you know, from you know, to recap, we talked about, you know, what we can do now, and we're saying that it's, you know, continue with the communication, make sure the clarity is there, engage with them on a one-to-one basis, and support managers to be able to do that authentically with their, you know, with their employees, their people in their teams. And then sort of more sort of midterm, longer term, it is about, you know, that change to that sort of more sort of conscious leadership, I think, of understanding the implications of what people have been through and their experiences to be able to engage with them on quite a different level, is what it sort of seems to sort of feel like. That's what I seem to have pulled from it. So we always ask the speakers, if you could give 2 pieces of advice to owners and business leaders that they could go and do, you know, tomorrow morning, or that they could try with their teams, what would those 2 things be?
If they can, get on the phone or virtually contact everybody, or contact managers and get the managers to do it. So if they're the leader of the organisation, that's what I would be recommending that they do, because that is a very positive thing to do. And also, it's interesting, when the founders of Pure Planet did that, they found it really I mean, it was, a lot of people to call and took a lot of time. They all three of them said it was a really beneficial exercise for us to do. We got insight as to how people were feeling. And then the second thing, I think, is show concern would be the second thing. Don't play lip service. If people are struggling, if people are under stress, help. Don't just make pleasant noises and all that kind of stuff. And try to adapt to make people's lives better through this whole situation. We are always asking people at Pure Planet, how can we make this better for you? And in fact, we're getting a bit of a backlash now because people are getting fed up of us asking. So you have to be a bit careful that you ask too much. But it is about that. How can we make your lives better? Not the company's, your life.
Yeah. Yeah. I was listening to something earlier from, I think he's called Jeff, I think it's Emmett, the guy who did the GE, set up GE. And he was saying that, we're only really at the beginning of this right now, that this is going to continue to come in waves. And that one thing that he thinks that is important for leaders to understand right now is to stay focused, but show patience. That, again, that vulnerability, we don't know the answers. We're in a completely unknown situation right now. And, it's stay focused on what you need to do, which is the plan that you talked about. But he was also, very, very clear about displaying that patience, and that it's okay to do that, because we just don't know, where we are. We're all in a bit of an unknown. So, anything else? Yes.
On that note.
On that note.
Time for a cup of tea.
Yes. Thank you very much for joining me. It has been very, very interesting. Always a pleasure to talk to you. In terms of, if you would like more information, either from Richard or from us, we will have sort of a set of notes to support the Shed Talk from today. And if you would like that, usual rules apply. You visit Rowan HR, www.rowanhr.com/contact, and then subscribe at the bottom of the website. And we will send you the details and the links, and also Richard's details if you want to sort of carry on that conversation. Equally, if you'd like us to do a second session in terms of employee engagement, we're more than happy to be able to do that for you. So let us know the normal contact details. Thank you again, Richard, for joining us. Like I said, always a pleasure. This has been a Shed Talk from Rowan Consulting, HR and organisational design specialists, covering a series of subjects to be able to inform and equip business owners with hopefully helpful advice around managing and engaging teams. So thank you very much for joining us. Once again, thank you, Richard, and hopefully we will see you on the other side for more sort of interesting conversation. But yeah, thank you very much. Pleasure.
Thank you.